speaking of adding packs and all that, you know, as you're aware, the sales compensation needs to be anywhere from 10 to 15%. I don't know of anybody that recommends for it to be up to 15%, but let's say that that's a good range. I like 12, 13%, somewhere in the middle. But yet we're paying our salespeople 25%. We're paying our salespeople 30%. Can you guys go into that a little bit and explain the value of packs and how you can manage your business and your financial statement? And I want it to be done in front of everybody. And I know there's dealers here sitting, and they're saying, well, I don't know if I want my managers or my sales closers to know this. I think they need to know it, and more importantly, they need to support it. And we need to pay the people that are making the money, which is the one that are selling a lot of volume, generating a lot of growth. And we can substitute that with bonuses. But can you explain, please, a little the use of packs and how it can be done intelligently?
Well, a percentage doesn't mean anything until you know what the base is.
Right.
If I'm paying you 50% of the gross, but my pack is $2,000 on a new car, duh, you know, I mean, where are you at? You're nowhere, right? That's why when you hear salesmen or managers say, well, we pay 35% and we pay, of what? Is the next question. Of what? You know, because what Helmy's talking about, 12, 15% or whatever that is, what that is net. That's that's holdback, that's involved with here. And it's any rebates on that particular car that goes to the dealer. So it's actually true net. And what you're talking, when you're talking about 25 or 30 or 35%, like Helmy was talking about just now, that's commissionable gross, above the line, right? And that's why dealers pack, because otherwise you can't compete, because you can't spend that much money to have a salesman involved with that, and also be paying a sales manager or sales managers on that. And in F&I, how many of you all pay your F&I managers on everything or on everything? Not many. Most all of you are paying your F&I managers on F&I reserve and the products they sell? Minus chargebacks? Okay, that's pretty normal. Although I will say this, we are seeing more dealers paying on everything to try to get everybody tied in, especially if you got a gin and dealership and you got an F&I manager working a deal, you got a sales manager working in the F&I office trying to help this F&I manager. In my opinion, that is the best way, but you've got to have a right team. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the right team doing that, then it won't go anywhere. Just like paying your fixed operations managers on everything. Body shop gross, parts gross, and service gross, because everybody starts working as a team doing that. But again, you've got to have the right team to make that happen. But if everybody's pulling the same way, it works. Everybody understand the difference between commissional gross and commissions then? Okay.
And there's two kinds of packs that I see. There's the pack in the commission, which is a set lot fee, sometimes called, and it's $500, $300, whatever it is, from market to market. In this case, what this guy was doing was he got tired of giving away the gross on the buying process. He was working so hard to buy right, and then they were giving it all away when he brought the cars back to the store. So he was packing it in accounting as well, and then it'd be the $500 normal fee on top of that. And he didn't do it on every car, just the ones that he bought out under the book. Does that make sense? And it looks like it's evolved over time to where he's just adding $100 to every car for the cost of booking it in and getting it to the store. Yes, sir.
When you're marketing the market,
Mm-hmm.
what value weight your used car inventory?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend using black book, rough, average? Do you recommend using NADA, or what do you recommend using?
It depends.
Can we ask the question again, please? Can
Yeah.
you repeat it?
The question was, at the end of the year, when you're marking your vehicles to market, in other words, you're appraising every car on the lot and writing them down typically, not up. The question is, why are you doing that? Okay? If the reason is tax, what you're doing is, as long as it's a recognized book of source, and you're taking the trouble to go through and appraise every car, record the equipment, it doesn't matter. Use whichever one you want to use, okay? Because the IRS will take either one. I've been audited on this one time with a dealer, and the audit on this particular issue, because he did everything exactly right. He'd print the schedule out at the end of the year. He'd walk around every single car on the lot. He'd write down what equipment was on it. He did a lot of truck business. He'd put the step bumper, he'd put the side rails, he'd put the transmission, he'd put the engine size, he'd put the ads, he'd put deducts on there. And he learned how to work the system so well that he would buy a ton of vehicles in November, December, because that's when they were cheap. He'd hold them till March. He'd make $1,000 in wholesale on every single one of them. But what he would do is he would appraise every one of them. We had huge vehicle write-downs at the end of the year because the book drops usually in December, right? It goes back up in January. So he would buy them in November, December. The books drop and drop and drop, and about the end of the year, it's at about the lowest point. We would write them way down, but he didn't write them down on his books because he didn't. If you'd done that, all of a sudden you just giving away real money. You just taken every vehicle and knocked $500,000 off of it. Now the salesmen are happy. You just reset the pricing on everything. And so the commissions go up, the grosses go up, everything goes up, but the dealer took a real hit. This is mostly done for tax purposes at year end. Mostly. It doesn't matter which guide as long as it's a recognized guide.
Just be,
You have to stay with one guide.
just be, right, be consistent. Be consistent.
Now, don't
right.
get confused
Be
between
consistent.
LIFO and write-downs. Okay, with LIFO, you definitely have to use one guide. But I pulled out the appraisal that he had done, pulled the book out, we kept the book. The IRS agent went through and sampled about a dozen of them. Everyone matched, and he was out of there. So as long as you use a recognized guide, I'm not saying it's going to work every time, because you may run across the jerk of an IRS agent who wants to make a point. But with LIFO, you absolutely have to be consistent from year to year on those. You have to use the same book every time. And we don't need to get into LIFO today.
No, please.
Okay.
No. I'd like to mention one thing, too. I had several of you ask me about the contracts in transit, that you're not, some of you are not quite as comfortable with the working out of the whatever your DMS may be. I'll just say this to you, that I have never seen any store where if you did it manually and also did it through your DMS, that it didn't work well. I mean, there may be cases where it doesn't. But, you know, it's a deal sheet, a heat sheet, whatever you want to call it. It's got all the pertinent information on one piece of paper. And that's something that the F&I manager should fill out and should be on the general sales manager's or general manager's desk every morning, and on the office manager or the comptroller's desk every morning. So now you've got something that's manual, it's done. It may not have hit the business office yet, so you know what to expect. In my opinion, it's a great check and balance. Yeah. If that's reviewed every day, there's no issues. Really, there's no issues with contracts in transit.
You can also pull that report out of the F&I system, too. You should be able to at most dealerships. And you can cross-match the two. Because what the schedule I showed you are posted deals. And I think what Bill's referring to is deals that haven't necessarily gotten posted by the office yet.
Right.
If the office hadn't posted them, they're not going to be on that schedule I showed you a minute ago.
Right.
One question I had at the break was one of the guys in here said, I get a report out of the DMS every day of the contracts and transit vehicle receivables like this, but it's only one line per customer. Is that what most of you get? What's happening, just so you know, if you go back to and they run this report for you, the office manager has a choice when she goes through the screen to actually print the report. If you get the one line one, she's printing a summary. And then the other option is detail, which is what I was showing you. So just ask them to run you a detailed report if you want to see all the ins and the outs. May not do it every day, but once a week maybe you could look at it. And then you're going to see all this information that I was going through a minute ago with you, where you can see what the deal was booked for, how much the check came in for, and you learn the sources, and there's only 15 of them. And if you see a 33, it's an internal. If you see a 30, it's a service ticket. If you see a 40, it's coming out of payroll. If you see a 56, it's a cash receipt. It's not magic. Okay? If you learn those few codes, you'll know a lot about what's going on in the books, a whole lot. And those great big huge printouts that you see on the shelf that says April schedules, April journals, and most dealers I know never bother to go through those things. But if you will do that, I've sat down with dealers side by side at a table, and in 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, we can go through every one of those schedules, talk about every number on the schedule. It doesn't take that long, and it's like an epiphany when we do this the first couple of times. It's like, my God, I didn't know we were doing this, and what are we doing that for? And this makes no sense, and I didn't know this was going on. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't even have to be an accountant to know how to do this. This is not that complicated. It's just learning what the source means and how to decipher it. And that's what I've been trying to show you guys a little bit of today. If you know the source, You know what the document number means, you know what the date means, and you know what it's supposed to be doing, a little bit about how it's supposed to be working. You're looking for the exceptions when you're scanning these schedules, the 1650. You're not worried about the 0, you're worried about the 1650 because there's a problem. Does that make sense? We can do a couple more if you like, if we can go through this used car schedule and how to read it if you care to do that. I don't want to belabor this too hard, but I'll do a couple if you don't mind, Bill.
Sure, go ahead.
This is the same thing we looked at before on the contracts and transit vehicle receivable schedule, except this time we're looking at used inventory in this column. We're looking at floor plan in these two columns because they're in the process of switching finance sources. So we've got 314 and 314.01. And then over here we've got that used vehicle reserve account that I was talking about earlier. Some dealers will put the lien payoff out here. And these schedules, by the way, are set up by the computer vendor. They can put anything on these schedules you want them to put on here pretty much. So if you want to see on this particular schedule contracts and transit for some reason, they can probably put it on here for you. I don't know why you would, but if you want to see everything related to a deal like WEOs, you could add that column here. Within the limits of the size of the paper, okay, is basically what controls it. You can also put out here an aging column if you like. They do have aging on here, and you can read it, but I like to have a little column out here. It's only a couple of characters wide, hopefully, no 3-digit numbers, right? Where you can scan down there very quickly and see what the age of every car is. In this case, they paid cash for this car. How do I know that? It's source 60 is Cash Disbursements Journal. The check number is 79223. So I should be able to go to the canceled checks or the check copies in the file, pull 79223. It should be written to probably an auction. They're not putting the description out here, but they probably should, who they wrote the check to. And it should be for $9,015. It shouldn't be for 1 penny different. It should be exactly $9,015 to the penny. If it is, there's a huge problem. Somebody's overriding your system. I know that at the same time we booked the deal in, we added a $100 reserve to the car. We're putting it in 240R. I know that we ran it through the shop, and this is a 33. This is an internal service ticket. If you look at the journals, the list that I gave you, 33 is internal, and this is the RO number. So if you want to go pull the RO to see what was added to this car, they did $114.49 on RO number 20280. It's pretty cool as you learn how to read this stuff. At least it is to me. Source 75 is a purchase journal. It means they sent it out to have something done to the car. Don't know what, but it was $100, probably a detail. And so they've set up in the purchase journal a liability to the detail shop for $100, and at the end of the month they'll pay all those detail charges at one time. That's why it's going through purchases. We know that there was an EFT on 12/28/07 for $8,915, so they floored the car for $89.15. We know that there was this was an in and an out, it looks like, so this was an accounting mistake. Somebody entered that detail twice. And then we know that right here, there's another purchase for $135 to a different vendor, and this would be the vendor number right here, that you should be able to go to a payable schedule and see who that vendor is, or get a vendor list from your office to know every vendor that you've got, the dealership's got. They'll have a unique number assigned to them. This might be a set of tires, not a set, but a tire that's been added to the car probably. And so that the total cost in the car has gone from $9,015 to $9,364.49. And this is why. Those ins and outs are why the price has changed. And we know we've got $100 in reserve. We know we got the car forward for $8,915. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? It's not a mystery. You guys can do this. Do one more. This car is stock number 39327. On 12/20, they wrote a check number 79224 for $15,255, and they put $100 in the reserve for this car. They ran it through the shop. This is a regular customer pay ticket. The RO number is 20236 for $195.45, so they probably did an inspection or something to the car. And then they sent it out to the detail shop, same vendor number, and for $100. And so the total cost in the car is $15,548 with a $100 reserve. As of right now, that car is not floored, so they got $15,000 of cash in that car. And they could floor that car for some amount of money, presumably, and get some cash back in the store if they need it. Yes, sir.
On the used car reserve, and this happens a lot with the cell phone costs. Let's say you did go to wherever and buy, and you got a bargain on it. You bought it for $4 grand back of what it's worth,
Mm-hmm.
and there's really nothing wrong with this.
Right. Big caveat.
So you got it for $4 grand back. You know your salespeople are going to sell for cost, so you're really going to blow that car out and not make what you should make on that car.
Correct.
Would you recommend cases like that, case by case, entering a reserve in there for that $4 grand?
I'm going to, Helmy, would you jump in on this question? Could you hear it?
I did not hear it, no, sir.
The question is, if he's gone to the auction and bought this car $4,000 under book, okay, and he brought it back to the store, and in this particular store, they're selling from cost. So they're going to sell it for $1,500 over cost. They should be selling it for $5,500 over cost instead. The question is, should we book this car in at what it's worth and put the reserve on it, or should we not? Now, are you going to cover that later on?
I'm going to cover that extensively, but basically
I thought
that's the beautiful thing of using packs. Now, most salespeople and most sales managers, they're selling from cost. They're basically looking at it and saying, this is my cost, I'm comfortable with a $3,000 deal, and that's what I'm going to go with. We're going to talk about how you don't sell from cost, but you sell out of opportunity. And even if you have a $5,000 deal, maybe it's not acceptable sometimes. And sometimes if you sell a car for $1,500 profit, it's the best thing that you can do, and you take it. That being said, in situations like this, let's say that you have done an incredible job finding a car. And that car is one of a kind, and one of those deals where you're not going to have too many opportunities to buy that particular vehicle. That sales manager that is going to sell it, the closer, the salesperson, the F&I manager, didn't have anything to do with that skill.
Not a thing.
You went to the auction, you bought that car, and you brought it back. You need to put an additional pack on that. 2, 3, 4 grand, whatever it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not saying pack them to the point where they're not making a living. Then you don't have a business. It's always good to have a very good number. And I believe packs is a privilege, and it's not a God-given right. I think packs, as you improve your business operation, as you go and spend a lot of money on training, and those guys are having the ability to ask for the price and get it, that's where you increase your packs. I know of some dealers that have a steady pack of $500 on every car. Doesn't matter what it is, how it is, doesn't matter, $500. And I know of some dealers that have $2,250 worth of packs. And I'm not talking like hard and soft, just this is hard, and then there's an additional $500 on top of that soft. And those particular dealers have salespeople that are making $100,000 a year consistently. But they also train every day. They practice, they drill, rehearse, they take their managers and their salespeople to wonderful workshops, and they grow, and they improve their skill level. So again, packs is a privilege.
Now, as an accountant, I get real bent out of shape when you're changing cost on the books, okay? I would prefer nobody in the store except maybe the dealer, maybe the used car manager, and the office manager to know what the cost is on a car. Why in the world do the salesman need
It's
to know
none
what
of their
cost
business.
is?
Salespeople shouldn't even get a price list, should not get a inventory list, period. They got 2 legs, and there's something called a good morning walk around. They walk around a lot, and they get to know what their cars is. And
This dealer doesn't have control over that. That's the
No.
problem. He's having to fool them by doing this. I'd rather
No.
not see this, to tell you the truth. I'd rather leave the cost alone.
And by the way, I know of dealers, one more point to the point that you made, where dealers are spending money when the cars are booked, where they get the car, they book it, they take the $100 into profit when the car is booked. I know of dealers that almost went out of business doing that. You
Will go
only
out of
realize money when you sell it. We're to the point where we take floor plan credit when the car is sold, not when it's ordered. And that way, that's a true reflection of what your turn is. So when the car is sold, that's when I take my $130, $140 towards my floor plan credit, not when I order it. Because let's face it, you can order 300 cars. Are you going to sell 300 cars? No.
Nope.
Not that 1 month, are you?
Not typically.
Not typically. So you're going to take all that floor plan credit that 1 month. What's going to happen in the following months? No. It's a little bit of added expense.
This is exactly what I was talking about, ahead of the curve or behind the curve.
Yep.
What Helby's recommending puts you ahead of the curve. You've got that profit sitting there waiting to be taken when you sell that car. You haven't already booked it.